we will be discussing matters that are of pertinence to you and your automobile. As always, we hope to impart to you some useful automotive information and perhaps provoke some automotive conversation on this rainy Saturday morning in the Mohawk Valley. Catch a little bit of rain probably all weekend. I want to wish all the moms out there a happy Mother's Day, which is tomorrow, and I don't want to forget to do that because always forgetting your mom on Mother's Day is a very bad idea. But happy Mother's Day, Mom, and all the moms out there. We have a lot of stuff to talk about today, but we're going to talk a little bit first about when you go to have the time to buy car insurance, what is it you're really looking at? So I want you to think about this for a minute. You're stopped at a red light, minding your own business, and a car slams into the back of your vehicle. You're kind of shaken. You're startled, right? You jump out of the car, and you look at things, and you're thankful nobody's really hurt. But you say, okay, it's time to get my insurance stuff together. So you go to your glove box, you get your stuff, you walk back over to the other guy, and that's when the other driver confesses to not having any auto insurance. Does that sound like a fun moment? No. This might be the moment when you might be thinking to yourself, do I have collision coverage to repair my car? Do I have enough uninsured motorist coverage to cover myself here? These are the things that are going to go through your mind. Now, we hope that never happens to you. I hope you never end up in a situation like that. But you know, as they say, stuff happens. The problem is, in order to save some money, some drivers might decide to purchase only the required liability coverage and then waive the physical damage coverage, such as collision and comprehensive. Or they might forego physical damage coverage because they only think, I'm a safe driver, and if I get in an accident, it's going to be caused by the other person. So their insurance is going to have to cover the repairs. But the above scenario that I pointed to a few moments ago, you might lament that decision if you thought the other guy is going to cover you. The other guy is going to cover you if the other guy has insurance. If the other guy doesn't have insurance, that's a problem. Now, mind you, that individual will be in a lot of legal problems, but there's a good chance you're never going to see a dime because in order to collect in that case, you'd have to, sue the other person. Well, if they can't afford to buy auto insurance, I doubt they're going to have much money to pay you. So, unfortunately, not to be fear-mongering early on a Saturday morning, you want to be thinking about stuff like this. So, a couple of things you want to know and think about, just some tips. Again, I am not a licensed insurance agent, but what I want to do is give you some things to think about the next time you do talk to your insurance agent. Now, first of all, you want to buy an auto policy before you understand your coverage. That's what people do sometimes. I buy a policy without understanding what the coverage is, right? No, that's a bad idea. These are things that you don't want to do. So there's a variety of coverage options in your contract, and that can be kind of intimidating if you don't know what you're looking at. That's why it's important to take the time to study each item before you purchase the policy and be clear on the types of coverage you're buying. You want to, in addition to know the coverages, in other words, that you have liability, collision, comprehensive, for example, you want to carefully consider the limits for each category. And, of course, if you're confused or just need to have help making your decision, don't hesitate to ask your insurance agent. It's their job to explain all this to you. And a good insurance agent is going to ask you lots of questions about where you drive, what you drive, what type of vehicle it is, the condition of the vehicle. These are all things that they're going to want to know to help craft a policy that really works for you. The problem with many cases, people buy insurance and they go to a number. It's kind of like a car salesman just selling you a monthly payment without looking at the total picture of what you're paying. You're looking at, I can afford this per month. And as long as I can afford this per month, period, dot, then I'm good. Well, that may or may not be true depending on what that coverage is and what your needs are. If you're driving a very old car, and I'm not talking about an antique, I'm talking about your 12, 15-year-old car that's banged up and you're just using it for basic transportation, you may not want to buy collision insurance for that vehicle. But imagine that you've got a 5-year-old car, it's paid off, got 60, 70,000 miles on it, and you're going to keep it a while. That car still has a lot of financial value for the most part. You want to make sure you got coverage for it. Which brings me to the next point is, what happens if you buy only the minimal coverage required? Now, the state law puts exactly what the minimums are. But that's just what they are, is minimums. And the problem is with minimums is that even though you might be legal with the minimums, what happens if you're in an accident and it is your fault, for example? So let's say you accidentally ran a stop sign and hit a very expensive vehicle or hurt somebody. And I, again, hope this never happens to anybody, but it happens every day to somebody. Hopefully not you, but guess what? Somebody has a problem every day. So what happens if, let's say someone racks up $500,000 worth of medical problems and your coverage was $300,000? Where does the other money come from? Well, once your policy exceeds the legal liability limits, it's basically your personal assets that go on the chopping block after that. Things like your house, your future earnings, and other stuff you might have to compensate for injuries and damages. That's what happens when you don't have enough coverage and something goes wrong. Again, I'm not trying to fearmonger anybody on a Saturday morning here, but if you just have the bare minimums, recognize the risk that you're putting yourself in. That's the most important thing, is to understand your risk. So again, if you're shopping online for an insurance policy and you get yourself a quote and you're at the state minimums, hey, that's okay. It's legal, but is that really what you need? And the other thing is that might be okay if you're young and you don't have a lot of money and you're struggling to make ends meet. Everybody starts off life like that. But what happens after a few years when you own a nice car, own a home, or have some assets, and you really need to have better coverage to protect those assets? Because again, if something happens and you're not covered, you're liable. Another good example is a common mistake that's overlooked on car policies is rental car coverage. And you might need something to drive after an accident, and you may not have any other transportation. How do you get to work? Now, that's a fairly inexpensive piece of your insurance policy, but you got to have it if you don't, unless you have several cars in your family. If you need something to drive while your vehicle's tied up, and again, it's going to go back to your policy. So remember, shopping solely on price is not always a good idea based on price, because not all insurance companies offer the same protection or quality customer service. For example, if you have to file a claim, do you want to feel confident that it's going to be settled quickly and fairly and professionally? So before you choose an insurance company, you want to check its reputation out. You want to talk to your friends, your neighbors, read consumer publications. And I'm going to give you a good tip here. You can go online and look for insurance companies' ratings from a company called AM Best. So that's capital A dot capital M Best, BEST. Or you actually go to J.D. Powers, and you can check a company's consumer complaint record or the state insurance department. There's things you can do to make sure that the company you're choosing is worthy. And then, of course, you want to have a good agent. One of the things I like about independent insurance agents, they represent a variety of companies. That's not to say single-line insurance companies are bad, but when I go looking for insurance, even though I've been with the same company for myself personally for many, many years, I shop it out every couple of years to make sure that I'm still getting a good deal. But the most important thing is to make sure you're not underinsured for the stage of your life that you're in. and making sure that you've got enough coverage, and so you have peace of mind if, God forbid, anything like this ever happens and you're put in a bad spot. And so, again, one of the other things you want to check is your uninsured motorist protection. A lot of people driving on the roads without insurance. Yep, it's illegal for them, but guess what? It's your problem if they hit you when you don't have coverage.